We're going to have a great conversation with Hunter McGrady. I'm really excited to talk to her. We're going to be talking about grief during pregnancy and also talking all about plus size pregnancy, which is such an important topic and one that is not talked about enough. So I'm very excited to talk with her. And a lot of people wrote in tons of questions.
Hi, love.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you? You look very well rested.
Well, listen, it's amazing what a little bit of concealer can do. A Christmas sweater. It's really just a gift.
The best. I was literally going to wear a sweater that's exactly like that. So I did.
I saw you were
really
as excited for Christmas as I am. So I was like, oh, I have to break out my Christmas sweater.
Oh yeah. It's like a full Christmas village that I'm currently living in. It's the best ever.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you so much for coming on and joining me and for talking about these two really important subjects. We got a lot of questions about plus size pregnancy, so I'm really excited to talk about that. And you and I chatted a little bit yesterday just about that subject and also how much more attention it needs. And you're doing such a great job of talking about it in your whole motherhood experience, which I love. And so before we get into that, I just want to talk a little bit about grief in pregnancy, because that's also a big subject and I think a really complicated one that we kind of spoke about yesterday. So we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but you lost your brother when you were pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I've had a friend who lost her dad, as I mentioned to you, when she was pregnant, and it's obviously incredibly devastating, and also met with, you know, becoming a new parent and welcoming the birth of your child, which is, you know, confusing feelings. But we talked a little bit just about your experience with grief during pregnancy.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's interesting. It's something that I never thought I would go through. You know, it's just, it came as a huge surprise. I was 7.5 months pregnant, so near the end of my pregnancy. And I realized, you know, it's interesting because when you're pregnant, you have this image in your head of like what it's going to look like, what it's going to be like, you know, meeting your baby for the first time. And that whole idea really shattered in a matter of moments. You know, and I think that this is something that definitely does need to be talked about, because I'm not the only one that has experienced that. And it really, you know, when you're pregnant, you're already high on emotion and hormones, especially in your third trimester. And then you add in this intense, horrifying grief that is just as bad as everybody says. It really kind of extracts any excitement. And I felt really guilty about that. It was such a strange feeling, because for months I was so excited to meet my baby. And then I was all of a sudden not excited. And I was like, whoa, wait. I want to put time on hold. I don't want to move forward, because then I'm moving forward without my person. And it felt really strange. And I learned really quick that, like, where there is immense pain and grief, there is that happiness and there is that light. And I learned quick, you know, life is really all about positive and negative. Where there's darkness, there is light. You know, where there's up, there's down. There's all these things. And I learned it in a matter of 2 months, and it came on like a ton of bricks, and I wasn't prepared. And it's still been strange having to navigate grieving while being a new mom, and, you know, going through these firsts with my baby and learning what that looks like. And it's strange, and I'm no expert at it, because every day I'm still learning how to do that, how to navigate this new life of mine.
Mm-hmm. I mean, how did you manage that for people who, you know, have experienced or maybe are currently experiencing that confusing feeling of, you know, of wanting to be excited about a pregnancy, having something devastating happen and being met with overwhelming grief and not really knowing how to manage it? Grief is such a complicated subject already. And I know that people are talking more about just the complexity of it, and that we don't really talk that much about the stages of grief, how complicated grief is. And then when you add being pregnant on top of that, it's, I mean, I would imagine just even 100 times more confusing.
Yeah.
But how did you manage that? Because that's obviously, you want to be obviously like healthy and present for your baby, and
Yeah.
at the same time not feel what.
Yeah. Honestly, I keep telling people my faith and my family. Like,
Mhm.
I could not have done it without my faith. It's the only thing that has gotten me through every day. My family, support from my family and my friends. I think just believing in a higher power. I'm Christian and I believe
Yeah.
in God and Jesus Christ and all that. So that's what was my way of healing, and it still is every single day. But I think also really kind of, if you're out there and you're not Christian, believing in something higher than yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and still having that connection. I'm still learning how that looks and still figuring that out, but I'm still making my brother a part of my everyday life, and intertwining my baby into it. And it's hard. It's really freaking hard, um and having your family support system. Your family isn't always, your blood. I know I'm very grateful that I do have such a supportive family, but I have friends who are out there who have lost and they don't have family. So finding that support system, even online, like following grief pages, has been super helpful for me. Just feeling like, okay, I'm not alone in this, because in that moment and during that time, you feel like you're the only one in the world who has ever experienced loss.
Yeah.
And so when you find those groups and that support, you're like, okay, whew, I'm going to be able to get through this. Because at the time, you don't feel like you're going to. You don't feel like you're going to be able to pull out no matter what. Like, I thought my baby would be enough to pull me out of it and be like, okay, cool, let's get past. And it's like, no, I truly was like, I don't know how I'll get out of this. I don't know how I'll get past this. But
Yeah.
we do, and we prevail. And you have to live every day for that person.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's such a powerful subject to talk about, and also just to kind of discuss openly, because there are so many people who, you kind of think of this time of being pregnant, especially, as a new mom and a first time mom, and you are excited to share it with your family, and then you're met with something like that, and it's just, devastating, and of course met with like the conflicting emotions. It's something that I hadn't honestly really even thought about until one of my best friends experienced it, and it was just, there really is no way to navigate grief in general, but I think
Yeah.
having like you talk about it when you're pregnant and talk about just like how you managed that and dealt with it is so helpful and so important. So
And another thing is, I think a lot of people, oftentimes, like when something like this happens, they think grief. Online it says it's 5 stages. It's 100 million stages. There's no, like they say, acceptance, denial, anger, all these things. And it's like, there's really no rhyme or reason for any of it. It's up and it's down, and it's 100 million emotions at once. And sometimes when you read online, you're like, God, I'm feeling more than just these 5. Is something wrong with me? And I'm just here to say, no, you're experiencing grief. And we all will experience that at some point in time, and prepare for that and know that it's okay to feel all those things at once. And it's going to be a shit show. It's going
yeah,
to be a shit show. I mean, it's horrible, as anyone says, but you get through it. And a support system is huge.
yeah, no, it's so true. It really is. And support system is always so important, but especially when you go through something like that, it's even more important.
Yeah.
So I thank you so much for talking about it. And I know that it's
Wow.
challenging to talk about it, but I think being so open about it, like you're being on your own page and also just having conversations like this, are so helpful for so many people. So
Of course. Thank you.
now to segue to plus size pregnancy, which I know is such an important subject for you. And also one that I'm really excited to talk about. I've seen a lot of people talk about it, especially since being introduced to the motherhood world on social media. And, we got a lot of questions about plus size pregnancy, and also just the challenges that come with that, the I think we got a couple questions of women who are plus size now and are nervous to get pregnant. And so can we talk just a little bit about some of the things that we talked about yesterday, just, you know,
Yeah.
maybe were really challenging or I know we talked a lot about just like the clothing part of it post, you know, while you're pregnant and also postpartum. And we got a couple of questions of women saying that they're nervous to get pregnant because they don't know if anyone will even realize that they're pregnant. How can they celebrate that? So I want to talk just a little bit about that with you.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. That was when I first announced my pregnancy. One of the biggest things that I got inundated with in my DMs was it hard to get pregnant because you're plus size? Because there's such a stigma around it, right? Like automatically in society, being plus size equates to not healthy, which is complete and utter BS. It's just not true. And two was, are you nervous you're not going to look pregnant? Are you nervous that it's going to hinder your pregnancy journey? And to answer number one is, you know, I really, like, my husband and I were able to, by the grace of God, get pregnant, you know, pretty quickly. And I am so grateful for that. I know that that's not the case for a lot of people, but I had a lot of people message me and asking, you know, what did your doctor say? And, you know, because of your size. And the truth of the matter is I choose my doctors based off of the way that they think about a plus size person, right? Like I've been to doctors in the past who, if your pinky hurts, all of a sudden they're like, well, you need to lose weight. And I'm like, that sounds a little lazy to me, but okay. Like it sounds a little far-fetched, right? So that's the first and foremost, like that's my biggest thing going into it is I always tell my doctors, what are your thoughts on this? Like, what are your thoughts on me as a person? And this journey, I want it to be a positive one because I've had so many women reach out to me and say, you know, my doctor fat shames me. My doctor always, you know, brings up my weight and I'm so horrified of getting pregnant, or I am pregnant and I'm so scared of having the baby because the way my doctor, you know, speaks to me about the way that I look and etc. And number two, yeah, I didn't look pregnant until probably my late second trimester, beginning of third trimester. And for me, again, this society has such a way of making us feel bad already as women, and then being pregnant on top of it, because you only ever see the perfect pregnant woman, right? Like she is just belly, she's glowing, her skin is amazing, her hair is long and flowing, and when you're not that, you're like, is something wrong with me? Like, what's going on? And I was not that. I gained weight everywhere. I had terrible acne. My hair was just like, it wasn't what I imagined it. And again, it was because I was fed the lies that I had to look a certain way, you know? And a lot of women feel that way, no matter your size.
Yeah. No, it's so true. I mean, I think that just to go back to the 2 points that you're making, I think having a doctor who's always an advocate for you and that you feel like it's side is such a huge gift. And we've talked about that in the past on BDA Baby for a variety of different, you know, medical purposes, but always trusting your gut and listening to how you feel about something and making sure you follow through with that is so important, especially, you know, the pregnancy journey is an amazing one. It's also a very challenging one. And then there's part of, so you want to be able to, and you see your doctor a lot. So you want to be able to have somebody that's going to be supportive of you. And then I think the part of, you know, whether or not you would look pregnant. I mean, was that something that you were anxious about before? Because some of the questions that we got from women were, you know, talking about some who are currently pregnant, who are nervous about when they will show or if anybody will realize that they're pregnant, but also just the anxiety for some women to even think of getting pregnant and that preventing them from getting pregnant because of what people might think going to a pregnancy plus size.
You know, it's interesting. I thought I would be a lot more anxious than I was. I think the moment that I found out I was pregnant, the anxiety of making sure my baby was okay and healthy was just superseded all of it. I really honestly was so enamored with what my body was doing for me and creating this life and feeling him and feeding him, and everything was going through my body, that I was like, you know what? Who cares if I don't look pregnant?
Yeah.
I'm doing something so spectacular and so incredible. And again, I'm all about, like, society is always feeding us what we should be doing, what we should look like, what we should, how things should be. And I'm like, okay, if I don't look pregnant, then I don't look pregnant. It's such a small blip of, in your life. And I think I talked to you about this yesterday, how, with pre-pregnancy and pregnancy and postpartum, I feel like you are continuously meeting yourself, right? Like, you have your pre-pregnancy body, and that body you've known and you've come to grow to love or be neutral with or whatever. Then you get pregnant and you're like, oh, okay, this is a different body. Hi, nice to meet you. Like, I have to learn to love you or be neutral about you or figure this out, or maybe I don't love it so much. And then you get to postpartum and it's that all over again. And I realized that you go through life, and especially as a mom, just continuously meeting yourself over and over again and changing. And there's something really scary, but really beautiful about that too. And I really decided I was going to honor my body, and I was going to say, you know what, like, it's done something so incredible for me. It's such a short amount of time that maybe I do look pregnant or I don't look pregnant. But the outcome was so much greater than what I thought was going to be, like, a very anxious time in my life.
You have such a huge online community. You obviously talk so openly about body image, which I love, and we need more of that, of course, and also your whole body image journey before, during, and after pregnancy, which is, just mentioned, a ongoing journey.
Roller coaster.
Yeah, roller coaster. But I mean, when you are open about your whole experience and your journey during your pregnancy, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, just the online community of people, messaging you, writing you, commenting on your posts. What are the biggest challenges that you see for women who are plus size during pregnancy that they are talking to you about, that women are coming to you and saying, thank you for saying this, I also feel this way, or I feel less alone because you've said this? What are those, like, biggest themes, would you say?
I think the number one would be representation. There's, like, zero plus size pregnant women represented at all. I mean, you look at even maternity websites, right? Like, first of all, maternity shopping is, you think plus size shopping is bad, and then you get into plus size maternity, and it's like, this is a market, and we talked about yesterday, that is so not tapped into. And I'm just like, why? This is such a special part in your life. And you're basically saying you don't really deserve to have anything that's really fabulous or look fabulous or feel good. And, and I think that that's really awful. And there needs to be something done about that, but also representation across the board. Even when you go into the OBGYN, I have never once walked in and seen a pamphlet of a pregnant woman who was also plus size, right? So I was always felt like I was kind of like the black sheep. It was always like, oh, well, I'm the one that's doing everything wrong. I don't see myself represented here. I don't see myself represented in magazines while I'm pregnant, or television, or commercials, or maternity clothing websites, hardly on social media, And so that's why I was like, I'm going to talk about this, and I'm going to talk about the struggles of it. And I'm going to talk about the absolute insanity that there is no representation. And I got so many women reaching out being like, oh my God, I feel this to my core. And it's amazing when you open up those doors and you say, listen, here's your community, like, come in, here's a seat at the table, let's chat, let's talk about this, let's see what we're going through. And it's just, there's something really incredible about that,
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that it's such a huge gift that, you're obviously giving to people and to a community. And I think that, I even see, when you post things that are postpartum, which I think, people are doing more of. And I think until you experience postpartum, you don't really have it resonate.
It's and no one tells you about it. And we talked about it.
No.
This everyone's like, you have the baby, and yeah, you're sleep deprived. But I'm like, what about when you're like sweating at 2 a.m. and your bed
Yeah.
is drenched, or you're
Yeah.
like running in, yeah, you're in diapers, you're in like Depends, and you're
Yeah.
going to the bathroom takes a half an hour, and you got a crying baby. Like, no one tells you this stuff.
It's so true. I mean, and then, I think, of course, we talked about this as well yesterday, just about the pressure that is put on all women of this, to bounce back to
Yeah.
your body pre-pregnancy or to get in the best shape right away. And I think, there are people that are talking about the importance of, giving your body and yourself grace after having a baby, because you just went through this huge change, and you grew a baby, and how amazing that is. And now you're, if you're breastfeeding, you're feeding a baby. If you are home healing from, if it's a vaginal birth or a C-section, your body is doing its own healing that way. So the importance of being gentle with yourself. And of course you do, at the back of your mind, I mean, I felt it, and I know that so many of my friends feel it. It's like, okay, so when do you have to start getting back in shape? Like, when,
Right.
like, feeling that way or thinking that way or having that. And it's like, you don't want even that to even be something that you're thinking about when you're focusing on this new human that's in your life and in your home. But can we talk a little bit about that? Because we talked about, like, of course, there's the clothing situation postpartum is a disaster. And you mentioned for plus size as well, but
Yeah.
what else, as far as body image? There's a whole world of acceptance, and also of love for yourself that you kind of go through.
Yeah.
It's confusing, especially with social media, if you don't look the way that people on social media look 2 weeks postpartum.
Which is,
Crazy.
it's crazy, and it blows my mind, because so I didn't realize how detrimental this whole bounce back culture really was until I was in the thick of it, right? Because for 9 months, everyone's like, you look amazing. Oh my God, you're
Glow.
glowing. Yes. Oh, when is he coming? Everyone's so excited, and everything is so cute because you have a baby. And then the moment the baby pops out, you get about, I would say, 6 weeks, and then everyone's like, so so are you gonna like get back into the things? Are you gonna get back into modeling? What do you do? Like, it's just so wild how we as a society and community really just like throw this on new moms. And it's so overwhelming already being a new mom, dealing with a newborn, and then having to, like, I have 5 minutes to go to the bathroom. Like, when can I bounce back to pre-pregnancy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not everybody has that luxury to, maybe have help, or, a personal trainer, or whatever it is, and I think that a lot of people feel that pressure because we do see it in magazines, online, Instagram, like you mentioned, and it's just not the reality. We're only seeing the 1%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why whenever I'm on social media, like, it's funny, I was doing a sponsored post for vitamins that I take postpartum, and one day I was, I got all done up, and I was, wearing a cute outfit, but you could only see my top, but underneath I was like full on with my Depends, my like Frida baby, like, the whole thing, my ice pack. And I just started giggling, and I was like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to post me in this underwear, because that's the real postpartum, not me looking all dolled up like, hey, take these vitamins, I was like, let's just call it like it is. Yeah, here I am. I have all my stretch marks came postpartum. I didn't have any during. And so everything really kept changing, and it still keeps changing. And it's like, I think it's important to be honest about that and say,
Right.
Listen, I just did something so spectacular. Give me a minute to like enjoy my baby and enjoy this new life.
Yeah. What do you think that we can be doing better? Just, obviously you have a huge community that follows you and you talk about this, but what can we be doing better that I think will make more of a difference for women, of all shapes and sizes to not feel that much pressure right after you go through this, insane transformation and creation of having a baby, just to make it easier on the already incredibly overwhelmingly complicated and beautiful and also emotional roller coaster that you experience when you become a parent. Um, what can we be doing differently? I think, you mentioned representation, of course, and being honest and open on social media, but how can we really change the conversation? And I wonder this, just when I myself was postpartum and people were like, well, you don't look that tired. And I was like,
Right.
okay, well, great. Like I
Like what
remember,
you said, yeah. You're like, well,
yeah,
I'm exhausted.
yeah, and like, my siblings, like I'm the first one to have a baby, and I had like one girlfriend who told me, she's like, just so you know, when you leave the hospital, you'll still look pregnant. And I was like, really? Nobody told me that. Like,
Yeah.
it's like these kinds of things we don't really, for some strange reason, talk about that much, but it really is the whole, postpartum experience, and everybody's bodies are different to begin, but then
Yeah.
especially postpartum, everyone's journeys postpartum and their bodies are very different.
Very different. And, I think the biggest suggestion is having conversations like this,
Yeah.
right? Like opening that up and being really honest and vulnerable. I think a lot of people have a hard time with that because we only see this very manufactured version of people on social media. And social media is king right now, right? Like, unfortunately. But this is where the conversations are happening. This is where a lot of the change is happening. So having conversations like this, opening that dialogue, whether it be in DMs or comments, or, I've had many women talk back and forth in comments, under my photo or whatever it may be, and then saying, oh God, wow, I feel so much less alone in this. And you're right, we don't talk about this. We don't talk about the nitty gritty of stuff. So we feel guilty and weird. And like, no one told me how sex was going to be the first time after a baby. Like, no one talks about this. So then we feel alone. So I think if you can, opening up the dialogue or finding that community, like, your page and what you do here, it is so important. It's so crucial. And I've already seen people, saying in the comments like, oh, I wish I would have had this when I had a baby, or, oh, I feel the same way. And it's conversations like this that are really making the change and making women feel better and
Yeah.
continuing this.
Yeah. I mean, for the women, just because, we did have, and we're almost out of time, but we did have so many questions from women who just feel so much fear going into pregnancy already. But I think especially just wondering about the whole, plus size pregnancy experience. And you've obviously been so open about it, but are there any kind of words of wisdom or tips that you have for women who might be newly pregnant and plus size, or thinking of getting pregnant but are terrified of it because they don't know what will happen with their bodies or what experience it will be like for them?
Yeah. I think the best advice that I've gotten was your pregnancy will be very similar as far as like the feeling and giving birth than everybody else's.
Right.
I went in thinking mine's going to be completely different. I'm going to feel, different things. And then I started talking to my girlfriends and I was like, oh, we all really are going through the same things,
Yeah.
but everyone wants us to believe that because we exist in a larger body that things are going to be completely different and it's going to be worse for us, and it should be scary. And I had a really healthy pregnancy, and I think a lot of women felt comfort knowing that. When I do talk about that, not to say that that's the case for everybody though, and I think that going into it, like I always say, give yourself grace, know that each and every day brings something new, but go into that, lean into that, right? Like, no matter what, we're all kind of a little bit anxious, but that's okay. That's kind of part of it, right? I think once you become a mom, you don't stop becoming anxious. Like, I remember being, right? Like, I remember being 20 weeks pregnant and being like, okay, once I get to 30 weeks, I'll be a little less anxious. And then I got to 30 weeks and I was like, once the baby's out, I'll be a little less anxious. You know what I mean? And
Yeah. It's
we're
ongoing.
all right. We're all figuring out what to do together. And I think there's a lot of comfort in that. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I really don't as a mom. And that's why I told you yesterday. I was like, I'll be texting you, girl, because I have no idea what I'm doing. And I think we're all doing that together. And it's the same with pregnancy. It's the same with plus size pregnancy. And it's something that I'm super, super passionate about. And I'm still going to be loud about because we do need that representation. It's so important.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. And I think, you know, obviously I'm such a fan of yours. I think what you're doing is amazing. And I think also, and we briefly discussed this when we were hopping off the phone yesterday, but I think just like social media can be so amazing and it can also be not, and it can be, you know, really mean. But I think especially as a parent and as a mom, and or if you're pregnant or thinking of getting pregnant, just this idea of being happy for people and being supportive and not mean and judgmental. It's such a rare thing. And I feel like it's such a breath of fresh air when you see it. And it's sad that it is not that like we don't see that more. But I think people can do that, you know, regardless of what your size is, what shape your body is, whatever you look like. I think just supporting people's parenthood journeys and pregnancy journeys, and it doesn't matter, you know, what you look like or how big you are, how small you are, whatever it is, it's really just, or, you know, what bassinet you choose to use,
Right.
how you choose to put your baby in a carrier on you. Like, it's just being more supportive and encouraging of new moms and just moms in general.
And women in general, you know what I mean? It's like we have to really rally around each other because we already have a lot stacked against us.
Yeah.
And we have to be there for one another. It's so important.
It is. It's so important. And you're doing such an amazing job at that. So
likewise, girlfriend. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for taking time, and I'll make sure to include all the information of all the amazing things that you're doing. And again, you're just such an amazing voice in this space. And I love, as a new mom, just following you and also just seeing all of them, like, been there, done that. Like, it's a whole thing.
All the chaos.
I love and I think it's so important and so needed in this world. And I'm so grateful that you took time away from your little one to chat with me today. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you so much. It was so, so, so great hanging out with you.
Yes, you too.
Bye, love.